I want to start with a big thank you to your association and to your association president for inviting me to be here. We met 2 years ago when she first came in. She came in December, I think, as president, and we met in January at the NACO conference that they have for presidents and executive directors. We were lucky enough to have dinner together, and she still enjoys a very close relationship with our association president from that time. She's been an outstanding leader for you. She's led your group, I believe, with dedication and abandon. Dedication and abandon. From the seat of an executive director, that's what you look for and hope for in a president. Not someone who wants to be seen as president, but someone who wants to be president. And Connie, on behalf of everybody in here, I thank you so very much. Got to meet Donnie Allred last night at dinner, and he'll become your president very soon, Donnie. I know you'll continue the momentum that she's started, as well as your own projects and initiatives, and we wish you good luck and look forward to working with you. My friend and colleague, Gene Terry, to succeed in this business, at least from an Alabama boy, I believe you need only one thing. You need passion, okay? We can learn about county government, y'all, all right? We can learn about counties. We can learn about how to work the legislature. We can learn about how to run insurance programs. We can learn how to provide educational opportunities. We can learn about providing legal representation. All of that stuff we can learn. We can't learn give a hoot. You can't learn it. And trust me, y'all, Gene Terry gives a hoot. Amen? Amen. He does. He is, I've never sat at a meal or an event with him when his voice didn't rise when he began to talk about the things that were wrong here in Austin that needed to be fixed in order to have his counties improved. Never once did we have a discussion in which he's calm. All of us short guys have the ability to kind of get that fuse off pretty quick. And you know, from the perspective of an executive director, it is passion. And that passion can be translated, I think, to the staff. They've already been recognized. There's another line from my homes in Alabama that says, what keeps me going? I don't really know. It can't be the money, Lord knows I'm always broke. It must be the pride of being understood when the people say they love you and let you know when it's good. Let me tell you about your staff. They work for you because of the money they get. Yes, I promise you, Gene ain't coming Monday if the checks stop, okay? But here's why they're there. They're there for passion. They're there on Saturday when they're driving their kids to baseball practice. They're thinking about this job. I promise you they are. When they're in the line at the checkout store at the supermarket, they're thinking about how they can better communicate with you and members of the legislature. So I encourage you to not let that applause that you gave them be it. What they live for, and I know it because I left my convention last Friday morning, 675 people like you in Alabama, and I left much more energized because people sought me out and put their hand on my back and said thanks. That's what keeps us going. So I encourage you between now and Friday at 11 to put your hands on the back of your legislative staff. There is nobody else in Austin who speaks for county government. Nobody else. There are no organized citizens groups to promote county government, at least not in Alabama. There's nobody blogging about the need to protect county government. Nobody's created a new pact that's going to raise money to support county government, and none of that going on. The folks who are fighting for county government are the people that you've got representing you. So put your hand on their back and thank them, if you will, for me. Okay, with all that behind, let's talk a little bit about what I got asked to come here to talk about. And I will apologize to you. I had to make a decision upstairs this morning. Do I take my sinus medicine and feel much better and not make you have to hear this very raspy voice? Or do I not take it? If I take it, I'm so sleepy that all of you are already asleep by now. So I elected not to take the sinus medicine. I apologize for the way my voice sounds. I do sound taller on radio, and And I am better looking on the radio as well. Have you ever wondered why the legislature was created? Look at that. Now, again, staff members, isn't it? Isn't it? I didn't put that glass on this because I was told it was constructed to make Gene look taller. It's the last short joke, I promise. The real question is, why was county government created? If the legislature can take care of everything, if the legislature can do whatever it wants to, then why did they create county government anyway? If we're going to be successful protecting and enhancing counties in Texas and in counties in Alabama, I think we need to know that. It's the basic question where we start. And I don't think counties in Alabama, although we're much smaller, although, Donnie, I will tell you, your county is much smaller in population than the smallest county in Alabama. Certainly Harris, Texas is much larger than Jefferson County in Alabama. But our issues are the same. Some counties in Alabama continue to struggle financially. Don't guess there are any counties here in Texas that are worried about how they're going to put their budget together here in August, right? Our roads need attention. Our county employees in many counties have not had a raise in several years. Economic development isn't moving along as fast as we would like. Our social services struggle to meet the needs of the community, and today they struggle to find support from community leaders who believe that they're the right thing to do. Law enforcement's understaffed and ill-equipped. Our jails are overcrowded. Do I need to go on? We all understand that county government here and county government in Alabama are pretty much the same. It does sound like the challenges that we face. And so while we struggle, the legislature comes into session. The legislature comes into session. And we find ourselves believing that the very best thing we can do, is to play defense. That if we're very, very well organized, if we communicate with each other effectively, if we drive from one end of Texas to the other to come to Austin, that maybe, just maybe, the session will end and nothing bad will have happened. That's where we were in county government 25 years ago in Alabama when I came, and I said, that doesn't sound very exciting to me. Now, there is some degree of enjoyment in making people lose. I was at one of those feel-good meetings where you're supposed to go around the room and stand up and tell what you do in your free time and what you're passionate about and all that. That was somehow going to help me get a little more connected with my inner self. Kathy Brasfield's back in Montgomery, and she would tell you the last thing anybody wants to do is get connected with Sonny Brasfield's inner self. But we go around the room and we're supposed to talk about what makes us tick. And I said, here's Sonny. I'm for anything in which we keep score. Anything in which we get to the end and somebody gets to lose. So I love the losing part about the legislative session. It is great to see those folks whose bills you've defeated have to shake your hand and walk right by you, okay? It is. And so there is some enjoyment in the idea of winning. But also I believe where we need to reach for is to accomplish the things that we need to move forward and do the job that we were originally created to do. And I'll come back to that before I finish, I promise. So, we are facing, I believe, in county government as stiff a challenge as we ever have, at least in my time. And that is the feeling from the general citizenry that somehow there's something wrong with government. That somehow government should get out of the way. Now, I know I'm speaking to the choir. You're here in this room. You've traveled, many of you, hundreds of miles to be here because protecting county government is important to you. And I understand that. But the question that I want you to ponder about for a moment is, what about the other people back home? What about the other people that you need to go back and inspire to get them to be more actively involved in this process? That will accept the challenge to be part of what's going to happen when the legislature comes back in session if not before, at least in January of 2015. In the time that remains, I want to go through a few things for you that perhaps will give you some insight into what I think happens in the legislative process. We've called them 10 truisms for legislative activities, and especially your staff that works up there every day, I think will find a little humor in some of these. Perhaps some of you will as well. If not, then we'll tell some more Gene Terry short jokes. I want to discuss the 10 truisms of legislative activity before we focus on some other discussions. First, your effective IQ is immediately jacked up 20% when you're sworn into legislative office, right? At least 20%. Or at least if you're in the legislature, that's what you think. You suddenly know everything. If y'all don't have legislators here that believe that, I've got some I'll send you, okay? Your effective IQ is immediately jacked up 20%. You knew absolutely nothing about eminent domain the day you got elected to the legislature. Immediately you're an expert and you introduce a bill to change the eminent domain laws. And then you find yourself arguing with the Texas Association of County Staff about why they don't know anything about eminent domain. Because I'm now in the legislature and I'm smarter than you. Okay? So first, your effective IQ is jacked up at least 20%. You believe you are completely invisible and impossible to reach by the citizens, except through Twitter. We'll talk about Twitter in a minute. When you go to the Capitol, you're completely invisible. Now, there's the old joke about being invisible when you were in college. Y'all probably remember that joke. It has a connection with Jack Daniels, or in this part of the state, I guess, the country, I guess, with tequila. That's not the invisible I'm talking about, although sometimes that happens too. The invisible I'm talking about is I'm unresponsive. While I'm in Montgomery, I won't talk about the Texas legislature. While I'm in Montgomery, I'm tending to very, very important business. And I don't really have very much time to return phone calls. But if you would like to know what I'm doing, you may follow me on Twitter. And I have a couple of guys in Alabama you will really enjoy following on Twitter if you'd like to know what they had for lunch and what movies they're going to tomorrow, okay? So we're completely invisible suddenly when we get elected. Third, you can do what you want to do because no one in your district understands the legislative process. How many folks back home where all of you live understand what the term, excuse me, Sonny used the term sine die up here. How many of you want to take a test on that? You know what sine die means? How many of you know what sine die means? Willing to wear that Alabama jersey, Mark, if you're wrong? How many of you know what sine die means? Okay? Legislators believe they move from the world of all of us into this new special domain where they can speak in code and no one understands what they're really doing because no one understands the terminology. One of the first challenges, I think, for us as an organization in Alabama, I won't speak for this one, was to educate our membership on legislative terminology. How are we going to engage these people in a discussion about what's going on in Montgomery if they start talking about things we don't understand? We need to give the bill a favorable report. We need to get our legislation on the special order calendar. If we don't know what those things are, the legislators believe they don't have to talk to us because we don't understand the terminology. Okay? Most legislative decisions are made on the most basic of levels, y'all. There, I said y'all. I'm going to keep up. That's once. The most basic of levels. Legislators vote with the people they like. Now, I Googled the Texas legislature on YouTube, which was scary, by the way. But one of the videos I watched was a media report about the members of the House, I believe, in Texas, voting other people's machines. They apparently sit where there's a person with a desk beside them, and then two people in front and two people in back. And there's video of Representative John Smith voting his machine, and these two machines, and these two machines. And then sometimes he might skip across the aisle and vote Connie's machine over there as well. They vote with the people they like. They don't necessarily vote because of the issues. Okay? Now, we don't admit that. But they become kind of a fraternity inside itself. And they're voting very often or doing things very often simply because of the people that they like. For us to be effective, I need to know who likes who. Who eats dinner with who when they're in Austin, Texas? Who hangs out together? Because very, very often, even legislators of different parties will do things to help their friends. They vote with the people they like. They assist the people they like. Do you know back home the legislators that your specific House members like? Do you know who their friends are in the legislature? If we're going to be effective, that's something you need to know. Okay? Let's see if we know. They'd never admit it, but most legislators think they would really enjoy being county commissioners. Why else do they tell us what to do all the time, right? The truth is, and I'll get back to this question about why they created us in the first place before I sit down. The truth is, you've got the job where you can affect and improve people's lives. You've got that job, not them. When we have members of the county commissions in Alabama who want to run for the legislature, I do everything I can to talk them out of it. Not because there's anything wrong with the Alabama legislature, not because there's somebody needs to serve there. I've made my living in taking care of our family because some people serve. But the reason is, I can't imagine that it's any real fun. You come into the chamber, we argue about this or that, and we cast a vote and we leave. At the level we serve, that's where we get to touch people. That's where we get to change people's lives. And I would say to you, most legislators, even though they're never going to admit it, would really like to get to do what you have the pleasure and the opportunity to do. Okay? We're getting near the end, and when I get through all this, you'll be happy that I'm finished. No. As a legislator, if you don't understand an issue but you think it's cool, and that's an inside joke in Alabama. We had a huge fight with a senator who went to the well and said that he was working on this issue because he thought it was cool. It's a great reason to be motivated. If you don't understand an issue but you think it's cool, then create a legislative study committee. And about 5 minutes after you create a legislative study committee, you'll reach the conclusion that you never should have. And as a legislator, you will run as fast as you can to skip the meetings of the legislative study committee that you created. Your legislative staff understands how humorous that is. It happens constantly. We create a legislative study committee about something and realize we should have stayed out of that. That really wasn't where we needed to be. Okay? Vote first. Ask questions about how it affects the county a few weeks later when you run into the county commissioner in the grocery store. No. Vote first, ask questions later. Asking questions is difficult. You don't understand legislative terminology, so how would they ask you the question in the first place? They're invisible and you don't follow them on Twitter, so how would you communicate with them, even if they had been willing to ask you the questions? So afterwards, we come back. Mark was talking to someone earlier before we started lunch about that very thing. Here's a bill that's passed that's affected counties that's going to be very difficult to implement. And did anybody from the legislative side of the table, did anyone who cast a vote talk to anybody at the county level before they voted? Okay? So if you get elected to the legislature, forget everything you knew about communication, vote first, and then hang out at the grocery store and wait on county people to come by so you can talk to them. This is my favorite one, but I didn't put it at the end for a reason. You'll understand that in a second. If government were a business, the county commission would go to court and seek a permanent injunction against its partners in the legislature. Amen? Absolutely. And here's why. I want you to think about how ridiculous this concept is. The legislature created us. And now we're all in this room learning about how next January we're going to protect ourselves from the very people who created us in the first place. They gave us a list of tasks to carry out. And we're going to try to protect ourselves from them changing those tasks in a way that makes it impossible for us to do it. Again, if we were partners in a business, we'd already have a permanent injunction. We'd have a big sign on the door that would keep them from coming back in. We'd be sending them a check every couple of weeks just to keep them out of the business so we could run stuff. Because all they can do is make it more difficult on us. I'll be passing out injunctions outside afterwards. I have those. Every level of government believes that the level above it has all the money and the level below it has all the idiots. Think about it. We sit here at this level and say, well, you know, we need to get this money or that money from the state because they've got all the money. The state looks at us and says, we need, you know, they need to get all of their money from the federal government. And at the same time, the legislature looks at county government and goes, because they believe that all the idiots are down here. I struggled for about 15 years with a guy in the Alabama legislature named Albert Hall. He's passed on now. It didn't matter what we were for. We actually introduced a bill that he had introduced 5 years later just to play a joke on him. He couldn't pass it. We introduced it, got it on the House floor, and made him fight it. That's how much he hated county government. At one point, I said to him outside, I want you to ponder this, Representative Hall. The same people who picked you picked all those people that you think have no business being in office at the courthouse. 2 or 3 days later, he came back to me and said, were you trying to insult me? I said, no, I was trying to brag on my members. I wasn't trying to insult you. And finally, counties are like Mikey. What on earth does that mean, Sonny? And would you please sit down and shut up? You're boring us to tears. Counties are like Mikey, and here's what I mean.
Look at this stuff. Some cereal. It's supposed to be good for you. I'm not going to try it. Let's get Mikey. Yeah. He won't eat it. He hates everything. He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Okay. Those two boys are the federal government and the state government. Yeah? Amen? Absolutely. I apologize for the amen part. My president, who just went out last week, was a Baptist preacher, and he ended every sentence with amen, amen. And somehow or another, it has fallen over to me, amen. But Mikey's us, y'all. Isn't it? They gave us these things to do, things they didn't want to do. We've now finally circled back, y'all, to why did they create counties in the first place? They gave us the things to do that they didn't want to do, and quite honestly, they gave us the best stuff. They didn't give us life cereal. They gave us a big piece of cheesecake. They gave us the stuff to do that really matters. They gave us the stuff to do where we can improve people's lives. That's the opportunity that we have. Now, I like my cereal. There are days, however, when I think that what we eat in county government is a big bowl of distasteful, unpleasant, unwanted, unnutritious bowl of mush. And I think it's because we don't look at our opportunities correctly. Now, for me, I want the big bowl of cheesecake. I'm Mikey. I want you to make me eat it, but I want to eat the big bowl of cheesecake. And so I'm going to close with a little philosophical look, and I'm going to ask you to think about 4 things, and then I'm going to circle back to that number that you think, well, he's from Alabama. He forgot. He said we were going to talk about a number. I'm going to ask you to think about 4 things very, very quickly. I'm skipping some stuff, by the way, if you're wondering how much longer you're going to have to listen to me. Here are the 4 reasons why I think sometimes we have a bowl of cereal we don't want to eat versus a bowl of cheesecake that we do want to eat. Okay? 4 things real fast. We do not challenge ourselves. Okay? And I'm talking about Alabama County government. I don't want you to stop Gene after I leave and say, what on earth are you doing bringing this guy from Alabama who came in here and told us he knows what's going on in Texas? I don't have a clue. I know what's going on in Alabama, though. I promise you. And in Alabama, at the county level, we don't challenge ourselves enough. We don't challenge ourselves enough. We are calendar people. It's August, let's work on the budget. It's December, let's have a Christmas parade. It's January, let's have district meetings. It's February, the legislature comes in session. It's May, let's start our educational programs and our conferences and conventions. And it's August again, let's work on the budget. We don't challenge ourselves. Santa Ana said, habit is stronger than reason. We know that we need to be challenging ourselves. But our habit is, it's August, let's work on the budget. We're going to turn that horrible Life cereal, hopefully no one in here is a stockholder. We're going to turn that horrible Life cereal into cheesecake. First, we don't challenge ourselves enough. Second, we're convinced that we already know the answer to all the questions. We're convinced we already know. One of my favorite office holders in Tuscaloosa is the probate judge and chairman, in Alabama, is the probate judge and chairman in Tuscaloosa. He's been in office since 1974. 1974. He just got elected to his 7th 6-year term. He hadn't missed an ACCA Board of Directors meeting in years. He's at every conference we have. He's at every legislative activity we have. Why? He's convinced he doesn't know the answers. He's convinced, even after all that time, that he still needs to be there to learn. Santa Ana said the wisest man still has yet something to learn. Okay? We don't challenge ourselves. We're convinced we already know the answers. We're too focused on our limitations to see our real possibilities. We're too focused on our limitations. We don't have the money. We don't have community support. Gasoline tax in Alabama hadn't been raised since 1992. It's gallon-based, it's consumption-based. From 1992 to 2012, consumption of gasoline in Alabama increased by 17%, which means we've only got 17% more money to take care of roads and bridges today than we had in 1992. Oops. What a huge limitation. We banded together and convinced the governor to take $1 billion of state money that would have gone on state roads and focus it on county roads. Okay? Thirdly, we're too focused on our limitations to see our real opportunities. Santa Ana said, knowledge of what is possible is the beginning of happiness. Knowledge of what is possible is the beginning of happiness. And fourth, we've made enough mistakes to clear a path to success. We've already messed up enough stuff, at least in Alabama. We've already messed up enough stuff that we ought to know what the right thing is to do. I mentioned to you I'm a turkey hunter. There wouldn't be a single turkey in the state of Alabama if us turkey hunters could not make the same mistake over and over and over again. There are only about 4 things that keep you from killing turkeys. If you could stop doing those 4 things, you'd kill one every time you went. We're not smart enough to learn from our mistakes. We've made enough mistakes at the county government level that we ought to succeed. And Santa Ana said about that, and many of you believe this is attributed to someone else, but it's from Reason in Common Sense, which was published in the late 1930s. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. We've made enough mistakes, y'all, to clear the path to success. So, as we think about what's going to happen here in Texas in 490 days, in 490 days, when the legislature reconvenes in January of 2015, when we think about what we're going to do then, I'm going to ask you to focus on those 4 things. You don't challenge yourself enough. You're convinced you already know the answers, so you don't look for something new. You're too focused on limitations to get yourself focused on what you can do. And you've made enough mistakes already if you'll go back and think about what's happened in the last few years. Those 4 things. The staff of this association will succeed if you will think about those 4 things and be a partner with them. Gina is exactly right. We are moons or bald heads that reflect light. We are not suns. If this organization is to do what it needs to do so that you can eat cheesecake and not life cereal, then I ask you to focus on those 4 things. And I ask you to join me in March while I watch Mark Hamlin wear A.J. McCarron's University of Alabama jersey, Roll Tide. Thank y'all very much.